Hi folks. To continue with my effort of learning out loud in my coding journey, I'm doing some recording here of an application I'm working on. This is a Frontend Mentor challenge, and the goal here is to develop a Kanban task tracker application. You can see we've got a Figma file here that gives us basically how this thing is going to look. If you're not familiar with frontendmentor.io, it is a website that provides design files um, for developers, primarily front-end developers, but you can make applications full stack, which is our plan for this one. And it provides the design files and says, here you go, this is what it's going to look like. Here are the requirements of how it should function. You go make it work. So that's what we're doing here. So this is what this is going to look like once we're all done. Some of the fun functionality that we're going to get to program into this is in this view, the little preview cards here that appear, we're going to be able to drag and drop those into the different columns here to update the status of the individual task. And you can see we've got a light theme, a dark theme, and some different things in here like pop up to make a task, how that's supposed to look, what happens when you click on different things. So all interesting stuff, and different views like tablet views here and mobile views. So this is what we're working on building. We've spent a little bit of time over the past 2 days, not a terrible number of hours, honestly, just a handful. And let's take a look at what we've got so far. So the first thing we're going to look at actually over here is just my CSS work, just to give a very brief overview. I've got a bunch of variables set up just so we can, as we're setting colors and styles and things, we can call variables versus explicit colors. So in the future, if anything were to change, if this company were to say, oh, we're changing our primary color from purple to green, we could do that right here in the file. And anything that I've made that purple color will all update versus having to go update different CSS sections individually. Just all our variable stuff. We've done a CSS reset because the various browsers handle different HTML elements in their own way. They have different styles on them already, and we want to just get rid of all of that so we can set our own styles and not have to debug anything weird. Got some utility classes which are based on the information provided to us here in our design file. Some of the typography, like heading XL, is bold, 24 pixels, 30 pixel line height. So I've got some of those things set up here. So as I'm writing HTML, I can list our classes and just use these so I don't have to go and style all these individual elements. And we've got some custom checkboxes, which we'll look at in a second. So let's look at what we've actually got so far. So we've got our task preview card, and right now this is all just static data. Once this is all up and running, this will all be updated. All these names and titles will be updated by whatever information we receive back from our server. And just to compare this to the design file, we don't have a different size in when compared mobile to tablet to desktop. So this is all the same size, but we've got the look. We've got, let's look at our actual CSS. We've got a height and width. I had a border on here just so we could see what we were working with as we were setting things up, but we don't need that anymore. Display flex, which display flex is helping us within the container of this task preview card, which let's look at that. Here's our task preview card. I like to use IDs on a lot of these things. It makes my CSS a little bit more manageable. Within task preview card, we're setting display flex with a gap of 8 and flex direction column, just to tell us that we're going to have these things separated by 8 pixels. The box that these elements are within are controlling the position of the elements versus the other way around. And box shadow, border color. So we've also got a dark theme on this, and I've got a button here to change theme, and that's going to toggle our theme. We have that set up with context in React. So we've got a separate file where we're just importing create context, and we create a constant theme context, which we export, which starts with a variable of light, just a string of light. And in our app file, our main app file right now, we are importing that theme context, call our theme context provider, which passes down our context to all the different components that are contained within this theme context provider wrapper. So anything in here, if you're familiar with React, you could be doing prop drilling, which will essentially get you the same effect, but this is a much cleaner way. So we don't, I don't know where these components are going to live once we're all done here, but it's a lot cleaner to just say anything within this context provider has access to our light and dark theme, which we're toggling with a function here that just says if your theme is equal to light, switch it to dark. If it's not, then switch it to light. So that's allowing us to use the class name theme on our preview card, and we have our regular color and then our dark color, changing some of that, as well as our H1 adjusting to a different color as well. We also have our main task card. So let's take a look at that, and we'll extend this, right? I think we can also scroll out of here. We can look at what this looks like here. We'll change our theme back. So we see the light view. And this is mobile, so I'll shrink the screen down. I've got mobile and tablet are the only two different sizes. Right now, tablet's going to be the same on desktop. So we can see we've got, certainly looks good off the front, right? We've got our checkboxes here, which match the purple checkbox. We'll look at that in a second. And when an item is checked, it crosses off and changes the color from that black to the gray. And right now this button, this isn't functioning, it's just there. So, and you can see the size of the card change as we change our screen size here. So we have our mobile view, we have our tablet view, and that tablet view is just going to go right to the desktop view. So no matter what screen we're viewing this on, we should be okay for making sure that everything is looking nice and clean. So we've got our theme, which is handled the same exact way here. We're using that context to update our class, and everything is still updating appropriately. Our checkbox, in order to customize the checkbox, we have to write some CSS here. When we select our input checkbox, we use appearance none. So browsers, they handle their checkboxes and things like that differently as well, right? So if we didn't have any of this code, you can see the size of our checkbox changes, and when we check, we have a blue background with a check mark there. This cross-out is handled differently. That's in CSS. We'll look at that real quick in a second. But with this code activated, you can see we have our bigger checkboxes, purple background, white check mark when we are enabled here. So you can see just appearance none, then we get to do our own stylings here, and with our pseudo class checked, if the actual item is, or checkbox is checked, we're using an SVG of that white check mark and centering that and making sure the size is appropriate. We also have a custom drop-down arrow here on the selection component at the bottom, which is the same kind of thing, appearance none. Then you go through and you can set a background image URL, or however you're going to set this thing up. Our crossouts, if we go down to our task view card, again, I'm using my, here's all the, in our case, I guess TSX or JSX, everything that's in with the task view card, all of my div elements here. We've got a task header, which is containing our H1 and our image over here. We've got our, I'm calling this an H2, which is kind of like the description here. Then we've got our subtasks, which are now their own individual components. And right now we are passing down a prop, this task prop, just so this can be dynamic up front for us, just so we know roundabout how we're going to do this. So like if we were to make another instance of this and just say, this is a test. Now we have another subtask that has this as a test. So eventually that will be dynamic as well based on what we receive from the server. And our subtasks in here, you can see here's our task prop that we're passing in, and we just put the task into our label, which is just a div container subtask with checkbox and label. So that, and you can see when we've got our subtask task view card with our checked, right? If our input is checked and we're selecting our label, we're going to change that color and put that line through as our text decoration. So that's where we're at so far on this thing. It's looking okay. Got a couple ideas as far as how I'm going to handle the actual data and moving things around. But that's all down the line. We'll keep doing these updates. They'll be much shorter in the future just to show the new individual elements we have built out. And thanks for following along. Bye.